Hello, this is Idodmg and welcome back to the channel. Last Epoch just came out with its 0.9 patch update, which notably added multiplayer to the game. However, that's not the highlight for me. The highlight for me is, well, we finally got an update after quite a long time. I think it's been nearly a year since the last big update came out. With this in mind, I know that we're going to be starting fresh with our online characters, and I was kind of torn between my two starter builds. Lately I've been playing Void Knight before the patch, and so I was torn between Void Knight or doing a Spellblade build. So I ended up just flipping a coin, and yeah, we just landed on Spellblade. So I went ahead and I spent about 2 hours theory crafting my build. In this video, I want to talk about my theory craft. I have not put any of this to the test yet, but I plan to do that in a follow-up video once I've had more time with the build that I've planned out. Sit back, relax, and let's enjoy some theory crafting fun goodness with the Mage Spellblade on last Epoch. So I broke my plan for this mage up into two parts. First of all, leveling to get me to around level 20 or so. And the very first skill that I planned to use and I looked into was Lightning Blast. I know that they overhauled this skill with the new 0.9 update, so that's why it was attractive for me. My big goal with this skill is to be able to get it to chain lightning, since that's kind of thematic with the skill for me, and I thought that sounded pretty fun. But after investigating into the tree, I did follow suit, but there's some other really cool nodes that I want to point out here as well. There's a couple different options with Lightning Blast that you can do, and the first one I want to talk about here is the forks and the chains that you can do. So this is your first node here. This allows you to chain each time that you directly cast Lightning Blast, and this increases how many times it can chain. And then this is the range of those chains as well. And then over here we went for a little bit more damage, but this was just so I could get down to overcharge node. This has a chance to double cast Lightning Blast and increases the critical strike damage. The double cast was really intriguing to me and definitely a highlight here that I can't wait to try out. But you can spec furthermore, once you spend 4 full points into here, you can get hypercharge, and this will allow you to quadruple cast Lightning Blast. That just sounds wild, man. I can't wait to try it out. And then we go ahead and go down the tree, and this is how you're going to unlock the way for the skill to be able to fork to other enemies. So the first node you'll grab is your crit chance and damage. Chain lightning, so you can get even more chains. So if you're looking at this now, we can get a total of 8 chains. It's pretty crazy. And then divergence here is what allows it to chain or fork. So what this is the lightning chains can actually fork and become an additional chain. The whole thing in my head just sounds crazy when I was going through this. So that's option number 1 with Lightning Blast. Another option I found that you could do with this skill, and this doesn't have so much to do with chains, is more about AoEs and kind of exploding and all that. We're going to talk about it here though, of course. So you can get a Spark Nova here, which has a chance, if you fully spec into it, Lightning Blast will create a Spark Nova around the first enemy it hits, and that Spark Nova then deals lightning damage to all enemies within a small area. On top of that, on our way to that node, we're also getting cast speed and additional chains. You can also go over here to pick up Spark Charge. Spark Charge is another way to ramp up the damage as well, and this gives you a chance to apply it on hit and detonate. And so this is, and basically the trade-off here is you're not doing chains and the spell's not forking, but it is having an AoE, it's exploding, and it's also doing cleave AoE as well. It's just a different type of AoE. So that is option number 2 with Lightning Blast, and this is going to give you more explosions and maybe hit more targets, since it's not relying on the chains and forks. Instead, it's just an AoE explosion type deal. Option number 3 for Lightning Blast, and I was thinking of a way to have this be some sort of ability to help me out with ward and survival and kind of fill that role. So here's a couple of different things you can do, and this is also going to factor in the multicast and the quadruple cast chance. And then we also have this, so when you're out of mana, you can still cast the skill, but it won't chain. And like I said, this is really just for that ward generation. So you can have Lightning Blast generate ward on hit, you can have Lightning Blast give you ward per each mana that you spend on the skill, which I guess would not synergize when you're out of mana, but at least you're still getting that ward on hit from that node as well up here. So those are going to be your main ways to generate ward with Lightning Blast. And again, I thought maybe this could end up being a filler or something. I think I went a little bit too in depth with this, since the build that I'm planning out is actually going to end up being a fire build anyway. I just really enjoyed looking into the tree, so hopefully you enjoy having some insight here. So the ward generation, I did spec into being able to cast it when you're out of mana, and also being able to double cast and quadruple cast. But you're going to have less chains. But the other thing here that's noteworthy is lightning attunement, and you have a 10% chance when you cast to get this lightning aegis, which gives you 50% lightning damage, and you also take less damage for 10 seconds. So I don't know, we'll have to see it in practice. Again, this is just a skill that I'm planning to use for leveling. So this is your third option you could do with Lightning Blast to kind of get that survival, get that ward generation going to help with your survivability. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If so, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have more skills that I want to talk about here with the build, of course. Again, this is just a theory crafted build that I planned out, spent a few hours planning out the night before the multiplayer launch 0.9. So I hope you're enjoying it. I will have the document link down below as well if you just want to have a paper reference there so you can go through and kind of see what I've planned out and what I have, different ideas and stuff like that. And if you want a sneak peek into my theory crafted builds as well, you can always join our Discord and pick up a membership over there. It's one of the perks that you unlock by doing that. It's just kind of where I go in and I just kind of nerd out and plan out a build ahead of time before I make the video. So if you want early access, sneak peeks into that, go ahead and check that out. I'll have the Discord link down below as well. The next skill I want to talk about, and again, this is going to be another utility skill, and this is Flame Ward. I feel like this has always been a staple for every mage build out there. In this ability here, I found two different options that I liked, one for survival and one for damage. So the first one, the way that Flame Ward works is you get a burst of ward, and then for 3 seconds, enemies deal less damage, and you retaliate with a burst of flames, which does damage. And this skill is pretty good early on, at least it was in the last patch. I haven't played it in 0.9 yet, but I'm going to as soon as I'm done making this video. So what we've done to get damage out of this ability is we went over here to Retribution, which increases that retaliation damage, and we also get a bigger retaliation area. I converted this from fire to lightning. Again, this is just kind of for leveling, and this will go hand in hand with our lightning blast. You can also get increased fire damage, but the fire damage, if you convert it, it will increase that damage instead. So it's more lightning damage. We also want to increase the duration because remember, Flame Ward has two different parts to the ability. Initially, it gives you a burst of ward. The second part of this ability is you take less damage and you can retaliate and deal damage for a certain amount of time. It is 3 seconds by default, but we're increasing that over here with dilation. We're also increasing the mana efficiency in the process. We're also going to go over here and pick up Fire Aura. While active, Flame Ward grants you Fire Aura, a spell that deals fire damage over time, surrounding enemies. And you can also get down here to increase the Fire Aura damage. Now, as you continue to watch this video, you're going to see Fire Aura becomes kind of a highlight of this theory crafted build that I'm really intrigued to try out. Historically, Ignite has not been super powerful, but they've made changes in the new patch, so I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. Before we go ahead and talk about the survival aspect and the ward generation aspect of this ability, I want to go ahead and point out some other options that you could consider with this skill. A lot of the skills in Last Epoch you can convert to other elements, so I already showed that you could convert it to lightning. You could also come over here and convert to cold. Maybe perhaps you're doing a chill/freeze build. But the other thing that I want to point out here is your ward generation. There's quite a few options in here, but these were the ones that I really saw being the most beneficial to survival. And one other note I want to point out here is you can actually get an additional charge of this ability, but it's going to increase the cooldown of the skill as well. But it's kind of a trade-off in personal preference for you. For me, since I'm using it as a damage buffer, I would rather just have the default cooldown of 15 seconds instead of an additional charge. I don't know, maybe the additional charge is better. I guess I'd have to actually try it out. So the survival aspect of this ability of just giving yourself a burst of ward to keep you, keeping that ward built in, this I think will help sustain your ward as well. You're going to want to focus on the first part of the skill here with that burst of ward. I did spec a little bit into duration, but I think this was more for the mana efficiency aspect of this node. So the first node we're going to go to is you straight up get more ward. So with that, you're up to 600 ward when you cast the ability. This one up here is Desperate Defense, and what this is the percent of missing health is granted as ward. So the lower your health is when you use the ability, the more ward you're going to get from the skill. There's also Fuel the Flames here. You get more ward, but the skill has a longer cooldown. We just talked about this one, and I went into this just for the additional charge because I thought you could save up your charges and, you know, just spam it twice and get double the amount of ward from the skill overall. And then we also have more ward. So you're up to what, 800 ward plus however much missing health, and then even more ward. So you're getting about 1,000 ward per cast of the skill. And if you cast it twice with the 2 charges, that's 2,000 ward right there. Not bad. Those are the 2 main options I found with Fire Ward. Of course, there's other nodes in the tree that make the skill interesting as well, but we're not going to go over all of them. There's one down here that is noteworthy though, and this is Barrier. This will make you take less damage while Flame Ward is active. And this goes up to, I believe, 40%. And if you're going to go this route, remember, this is only while the ability is active, and by default, it only lasts 3 seconds. So you're going to want to spec into duration for that. The next skill that you're going to want to specialize into, in my opinion, at least in my theory crafting session, is Flame Reave. This is going to be unlocked with once you get level 5 with your Spellblade Mastery. So it will unlock a little bit later on. But this skill, I think, is going to be one of the staples of the build, and I think is going to dish out the most damage. And here's why. I came up with 4 different ideas for this ability, so I'll try to not take super long going over all the options I came across. But the very first one, and this is the one I want to test because this one will give us Fire Aura. So my plan with this skill, Flame Reave, is to come over here for your attack speed, and you want to get the mana cost reduction, but the caveat here is it has less range. So we're going to have to see how much minus 48% range really is in the game, and perhaps we'll have to revisit this. But we're also going to get this over here, Rhythm of Fire. Every 4th use will increase the range, deal more damage, and increase the width. Now you can come over here if you want. I chose not to for this specific setup, where whenever you use Surge, it will count towards that count to get to your 4th cast of the ability. But I'm not doing that in this setup because I wanted to invest more into the Ignite chance, the Fire Aura, and these explosions over here. So first up, of course, we want fire damage. Ignite chance, we just did the 1 node over here so we could get down to width increase. And Lingering Embers, this is going to give you a chance to cast Fire Aura whenever you use Flame Reave. Fire Aura, I said it before and I'm going to say it again, I'm excited to try it out in game. Hopefully I'm not let down. And the other interesting node here that I saw was Scorched Earth. Enemies killed by Flame Reave have a chance to explode, dealing damage to nearby enemies. It's only a 30% chance, but I'm thinking if you have a lot of monsters on screen and you're killing a bunch of monsters, it's going to proc. And then you also can increase the explosion area and explosion damage. I think this should be a really cool, fun fiery build. I'm excited to check it out. This is going to be my first way of taking this skill. Now, the second setup I thought of here was to add in the Spreading Flames and also being able to autocast Fireball. If we wanted to go this route, we would have to find a way, and probably not have to, but I'd like to find a way to fit in Fireball because you have a chance when you hit an enemy with Flame Reave, you have a chance to cast Fireball. So it's only up to, I think, 24% chance, but still cool nonetheless. But in this build that I want to talk about here right now is the Spreading Flames. This is another trend you're going to see across this build, is there's Spreading Flames on other areas as well. And so that's why I thought perhaps we would see some pretty cool synergy here. And then, of course, you're going to want to pick up your fire damage, your ignite chance to get down to your width, and your fire aura that we talked about earlier. And, you know, again, this is, you can decide here. There's just so many different options with this skill. Do you want spreading flames? Do you want to be able to autocast fireball? Do you want your fire aura? Do you want those explosions? Or, in the very last option I found on this skill, is the flame caller node. This sounded really cool. The Flame Reave, when you cast it out, will come back to you as well, but the damage is a little bit decreased, but then it, you know, kind of double hits in a sense. And then if you wanted to take it one step further, you can pull in the enemies when it returns, but this adds a 4-second cooldown to the ability. I don't know, this could be cool if maybe if you're trying to control the field, maybe in multiplayer, kind of like a pole monk from Diablo 3, I don't know, something like that. Sounded kind of cool anyway. Of course, there's always more nodes here, but those were the big hitters over here that seemed the most interesting to me. Is your explosions, fire aura, spreading flames, autocast fireball, and the flame caller. Last but not least, you could take Flame Reave and you could use it to help with your survival. Now, this is going to be feeding into and be heavily reliant upon being able to crit ignited enemies to gain ward. Now, this is not ward on hit. This means you have to have an enemy that's ignited and then you have to crit that enemy. So the way that we execute this is, of course, we go into our fire damage. We're going to go ahead and go down to our ignite chance. You want to max that out, obviously, so that monsters can be ignited. I went with just so it can hit more potential enemies, ignite more enemies, in turn giving you more enemies to crit to gain ward. Next up, we're going to go down to melee damage versus ignited, because they're already ignited, so why not? More crit chance against ignited. Of course, you can see why we're going to want that. And then we're going to get more crit chance, but this will lower the width. So I kind of went over here to counteract a little bit of that. And last but not least, and this is the cherry on top, this is where you're getting your ward gain. When you attack with Flame Reave and critically strike at least one enemy, you gain ward. So I guess I was wrong. You don't have to crit a ignited enemy. You just have to crit the enemy. So this is going to be your ward on crit. I guess the ignite chance is a nice little bonus. So that's the route you could take with crit. I mean, you could probably take out nodes here and go into your fire aura, your spreading flames, any of those other ones, and just pick up this node as well. Those are some different options you have with Flame Reave. There's a lot of options here, and I think I'm probably going to go through a lot while actually playing the patch 0.9. The next skill I want to talk about here, and this is a huge utility skill, this is Enchant Weapon. There's two different ways you can take this skill. One is for damage, and one is for kind of a lazy way to use the skill. We'll talk about it here in a minute. Before we jump in, though, I want to point out that I am focusing on fire in this video, since that is going to be what I've theory crafted here. However, you can take Enchant Weapon to amplify your shock, lightning, and you can also take it down chill, frost, freeze, all that fun stuff, LA Nova. We're not going to talk about all that right here, but those are options as well. We're just focusing in on fire. So the way that I think this would deal the most damage is, first of all, the ability has two parts to it. It has an active and a passive part of this. So when you activate the skill, it lasts for 5 seconds and you deal more elemental damage with melee attacks. Passively, you just deal more elemental damage with melee attacks. Now we're going to ramp this up and we're going to add to the passive there so you get more melee ignite chance. And we're coming down here for Burst of Fire. So when it is active, hitting ignited enemies casts a fire burst towards them. It does have a 2-second cooldown, which we can reduce over here with the Flame Blast node to increase the damage of Fire Burst and reduce the cooldown. Again, this is where that Ignite is going to come into play with this build. And so Ignite is a really important ability and stat to have. We're also going to come over here for Ignite Duration, and this will ramp up the duration all of your Ignites, so this will make you do even more damage, and you're going to want more duration on them as well, so you can have even more stacks for this down here, Conflagrate, which will consume all of your Ignite stacks and deal the damage instantly. So this will be great for bursting down bosses and other monsters. I can't wait to try this out. When I first saw this node, I was super hyped. You can also make that Conflagrate damage increase right here. So this is what I found to be the most damage here with the fire build. And then you can also increase the duration. This is a huge node over here too. You can increase this thing by 4 seconds. So you can get this thing to last 9 seconds and only have 6 seconds of downtime, which you could further ramp up with cooldown reduction that you can find on gear. The other way you could take this ability, and this is going to be more for, if you're lazy like me, you could consider doing this. Again, you're taking away a little bit of ignite duration. You're going to be losing out on a little bit of damage, but with the peace of mind of not having to remember to cast the ability to get that active buff. And really, you're just coming down here for Kindling Blade, which will automatically recast the ability. It does have a mana cost, so maybe you don't want to do that, but you can go ahead and, if you want to, definitely worth considering. Those are going to be your two main options that I found with this theory crafting session for Enchant Weapon. Again, I can't wait to try this out. Next up, we have Firebrand, and this skill is going to be used to bolster up your Flame Reave. I found two different ways to take this skill that I found interesting, one for damage and one to help out more with survival. The first way I think I'm going to take this tree is to increase the damage, come down here for Incineration. This is where you're going to see the ramp up I was talking about for Flame Reave. Your next melee attack that is not Firebrand will consume all the stacks of Firebrand and deal more damage per stack consumed. And you also down here, this is, I don't know, this one I feel like you don't really need, but it's kind of nice. If you consume 3 or more stacks of Firebrand when you incinerate, it is a guaranteed crit. So that's going to be where the big damage is going to come out, and you're going to see that with both setups here that I've thought of. There's other nodes in this tree, but a lot of them are conversions to lightning and stack duration. I feel like with this skill, there's really 3 ways you could take it. The first one is to bolster your other melee abilities. The second is ward generation. Third option is to use this skill as a main skill and building up those stacks, keeping those stacks, and just using this as your main damage ability. But in this video, we're just going to cover the damage aspect and ward. You can also come over here for Fulmination, which is your attack speed to help generate stacks quicker. Ignite chance, you already know about Ignite. We've talked about it quite a bit. And also Spreading Flames. You can see Spreading Flames. We've got it in other areas as well, so why not get it here on top of it? The second option you could do with Firebrand is to pick up that ward. You can see I just spec'd out of the Ignite chance and the Spreading Flames, and instead went over here for the ward generation. You can gain ward on hit, you can gain ward per second per stack of Firebrand, and you can also get ward per stack consumed. The ward per second is not going to be as massive as the on hit and consumptions. Since we're not going to be staying with Firebrand a lot, we're using it just to build up max stacks and then incinerate and go back to Flame Reave. I'm also thinking this ability could be used as a filler since it has no mana cost associated with it. The final skill we're going to specialize into is Surge. This is going to be our movement mobility skill. Of course, while you're leveling, you're going to be using teleport to get around the map quicker. However, we're not going to specialize into teleport. I'm thinking I'm just going to specialize into Surge once I unlock that 5th specialization slot. There's a couple different things you can do with this skill. You can get it to autocast Flame Reave, which will obviously match our build. You can also get it to cast your Fire Aura. You can also get some survival out of this skill as well. We're going to talk about it all right now. Before we go in depth exactly of my plan for my build, I do want to point out that you can convert this, of course, to lightning or frost as well. There's different options, but we're going to be focusing on our damage output here, autocasting Reave, and our ward nodes as well. First and foremost, we want to look how to get the most damage out of this thing. So we are going to, and the way Surge works is it has a fixed distance that it can go, and I'm not entirely sure how far that distance is, so once I try it out in game I may have to add in Long Strider to make the distance further, but for now we're just focusing on the damage nodes and those ward nodes. The very first setup I have here is your shock chance, and this is just to get over to increase the area of Surge so you hit more monsters. You're going to pick up your dormant energy stacks here. It's called Storm Battery. While Surge is on cooldown, using a melee attack and hitting at least one enemy will get you a stack of dormant energy. And there is a maximum amount of stacks, and with this spec here in this node, we can get up to 10 stacks. The cooldown is only 4 seconds, so hopefully you can get your 10 stacks within that 4 seconds, because what's going to happen is once you consume the stacks, you will gain ward. And on top of that, you're also going to have a chance to cast Fire Aura. Now, I don't know if this is each stack of the dormant energy stacks, but if so, I mean, that's 10 Fire Auras, because I think Fire Aura can stack as well. Again, I haven't played the build. This is all pure theory crafting. The other benefit here is when you consume those dormant stacks, it will increase the damage of Surge when you use it again. Now, this is another huge part here, and this is going to be where we convert lightning into fire damage since we're doing a fire build. And this is it right here. This is the cherry on top, Pyroclasm. This will be how you cast your Flame Reave on arrival. So that's going to be how you output your damage. Now, this is another option I'm thinking of doing if we hit a point in the playthrough where I need more survival. We can scale it back here and pick up some wards. So of course, we're going to go up towards the top here. We're missing out on the area here, but we are getting that ward per stack. Now you have a little bit of play here and some options that you're gonna have to make for yourself. For me, this is how I have it set up, 20 ward per stack. We're kind of making some sacrifices here, but let's go ahead and talk about the highlight nodes here. And the first one is Storm Aegis. If you hit at least one enemy, you'll get 150 ward. Remember, this is a 4-second cooldown, so every 4 seconds you can get that ward there. You're also going to gain ward on hit with Surge, which is great. So if there's a lot of monsters, you'll get more ward. And then we also have ward gain here when you crit. So this is your ward on crit, and it also increases the base crit chance. We also go up here to the top that we talked about a little bit ago, But remember, we're kind of scaling it back here just with a focus of ward. And this will allow you to get 4 stacks of that dormant energy, and then in turn giving you 20 ward per stack when you do consume those stacks. So not a lot of ward. I feel like I'm going to be better off going the damage route, but hey, it's an option there if you see it working out for your build. And I don't know, maybe I'll end up trying both. That's going to wrap it up for this theory crafted Spellblade build on Last Epoch patch 0.9. I hope you found this video helpful, maybe inspirational, maybe it gave you some ideas for your own Spellblade build. If you enjoyed hanging out with me here today and talking about Last Epoch, don't forget to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and turn notifications on. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.